Hi. This is Mengqi, and this is.
I'm Sean Callebs.
We are reporters for CGTN, and today we're live for you in a very special location. It's a village called Liangjiahe, and Sean, do you want to?
Yeah, it's a very fascinating place for me. I had not read a lot about it before I got to China, and here on this cold, windy, late winter day, we're getting a very good look at where President Xi spent a lot of his teenage years and his early 20s. Really, it kind of shaped him as a leader, and it really drove him to fight things like poverty in China, and also gave him that very common touch with the everyday man. And people lived in caves when they came down here.
This is the place that President Xi Jinping called his second home. So he used to live in caves here, and as you can see, our cameraman can just.
Yeah, these are carved out of the mountain, and inside this one, for example, is one that focuses on the party. And you see a lot of old posters on the wall, but this is where people also used to come. It was a store of sorts where they would be able to pick up grain, tea, things like that that they needed to get by every day.
In the past, in the 60s and 70s, when it was the Cultural Revolution and people had this commune, it was not called a village back then, and it was a commune, and people work in teams to grow grains. But to get these products, they have to travel far into the town, and it used to be a long trip. So Xi Jinping had this idea to bring these goods to this place where they could be rationalized to the villagers. So yeah, that saved a lot of the time and effort, so people could spend more time on farming, and that's a more
It's just a better use of their time is what it comes down to. And as we go down, there are actually 6 of these caves that are carved out of the mountain. And you can see everything from like the typical grains that they had. It's all been renovated, and it's a tourist area now where people can come, and they do by the thousands. We've seen them come in here throughout the day. In here, another little area where people can. But this one, I think, Mengqi, is the one that gets the most attention. Walk people through that.
This is the cave. This is one of the 3 caves that Xi Jinping lived in, and let's just go in for a look. Well, you can see this. There's not much space here, but it had everything. You know, the basin for washing your face, and this is the storage pods. And guess what's inside? Millet. This is what we call millet. And in this part of China, people grow this and as a major grain, as their crop. This can be used in the congee or make doughs, buns. And this wood box is, as we open it, is where people keep their clothes. There's not much space, but people get by. Back then was really poor in the 60s and 70s. And this is obviously the bed. And, a bed made of straw. Well, I wonder whether they would feel cold, sleeping here. And this is obviously not just a bed for one person. Could be beds for 3 or 4 people sleeping together. And right there, is a photo of the young Xi Jinping in his teenage years. You can see he was quite slim back then, and we were told that people didn't have enough food to eat at all. And from Mr. Xi's memoir, he said that there was no meat at all, and once they saw meat, and they just ate it raw. So that gave you an idea of how poor this place was back then, and how little food people had. And on the wall, these are all. Oh, actually, I want to show you this. If you could just, show our audience this. This is right beside the bed, and this is where people make fire and cook. So you can see it's all cramped in the same space here. This is the pot they used to maybe just boil water or I guess this one's for boiling water. And this is for cooking. And this is how they make the fire. Right. And on the wall, there are pictures of the young Xi Jinping again. This one was taken in 1974, in December. And let's see. It was a group photo of the commune, so we don't know whether she was in there. But this one for sure, that's him. That's him on this, yeah. The second on the right in 1973 with the other stand-down youth. Okay, now let me explain a bit the idea, the concept of stand-down youth. So when the Cultural Revolution started around that time, Mao Zedong, the chairman of China, he launched a campaign, the so-called campaign to re-educate China's urban youth. So millions of them were sent down from China's urban areas to the countryside to be educated about the virtues and values of the peasant majority, the values of thrift, of perseverance, and the ability to endure all these sufferings and hardships. So, and yeah, this one is when Xi Jinping left this village after staying here for 7 years, and all the villagers were very, very sad, and they saw him off, and they took this photo. And that's when she left to go to Tsinghua University, the most prestigious university in China. Right, and here, this table, it's showing a lot of books, and maybe we can just pick one or two. We were told that when Xi Jinping came here as a 15-year-old, he brought two suitcases packed with books, and during that time he would read whenever he had time. And this is so some of these books you can see from the books here. It's not only Chinese books he was reading. There was also Roosevelt, the anecdotes of Roosevelt, the U.S. president, and The Old Man and the Sea, and that's the story by Hemingway. So, and also that's China's intellectual history, the past in intellectual history in ancient China, and Marxism, Lenin, the history of the Middle Ages, and the poems. And there are poems as well, War and Peace. So there was a wide selection of books he was reading, and people, we were told by the villagers here that he really loved studying and reading, but it was not easy to keep on self-education. Well, now let's come outside again and to walk around the village a bit more. Sean?
Yeah,
sorry, it took quite a bit of time.
It's fascinating, though, and here we are. To give you an idea, this is an area that kind of winds its way through several thousand meters, and there are 3 separate cave areas where President Xi did live. And now tourists can come through this area, and they do by the thousands. We've seen them come in throughout the day. They kind of walk through. Yeah. This is one area that they come down through, and then they can make it their way through. And to me, I was very fascinated with the lady that we met who lived next door to President Xi when he came here as a 15-year-old.
Yeah, he was 15.
And she has lived here close to 50 years and still.
She came here when she was 19, but she married here. And there's the Chinese tradition of what we call 闹洞房, which means you prank the brides and grooms when they get married, and like a cave like this for the newlywed. And the people, their friends.
They could just go over
and the friends, they would poke the windows and see what they're doing. And to stop them from doing this, they would, give the friends and people sometimes food, some other times
They had very
money.
limited means back then, so it was fruit, things like that, anything they could. But she still laughed about that. And how many people can say that they had the president of China pull a prank on them? So it was really interesting. And she had all these wonderful photographs inside her cave where she sells certain goods.
Yeah.
And among these photographs, there's a very famous one of her presenting President Xi with a pair of shoes.
A pair of shoes.
And instead of just taking the shoes, even though they were longtime friends, he ended up paying for the shoes.
Right.
And that really kind of typifies the kind of common man touch that President Xi has with the people in China. And after spending time here, you really understand his fight against poverty, because this is a poor area, but it used to be a lot worse off.
Well, in this region, when there are a lot of villages like in the mountains, and back in the time there was no road, there was no electricity, no gas, and it's hard. And also, I read a bit about the history here, because this part in northwest China, it was usually it was the border of China's empires.
Right.
So there was always a lot of wars, and so this war-wrought region was hard. It's hard to develop the economy, and given this location,
It's where it is, the mountainside, which we'll take a
Right.
picture of in just a bit. But if you think about the population here today, there are 400 people that live here today. About 80 of them work with a tourist company that operates this. And with President Xi, his international attention that he's getting, I can only imagine this area is going to continue to grow and grow and develop and develop.
Right.
But you also have a feeling, just when you look at how wonderfully,
This
beautifully
is
rugged
amazing.
these
This is
mountains
one
are.
of the things that fascinates me after I
'Cause you-
started. I'm located,
Exactly.
to give you an idea, because I'm currently based in Zhengzhou in central China's Henan province. Henan is also a big agricultural province, and
But these mountains, can you imagine trying to find a way to farm
This-
out of these mountains?
this is a topography unique to what is known as the lowest plateau. And the Yellow River flows through it, picking up silt. So this lowest, for the record, is silt. It's deposited and transported by wind.
Right, right.
And you can see these ravines were created by the action of water across time. And we drove more than 600 kilometers here. And during the ride, it was quite a view.
Yeah.
Yeah, to see all those ravines.
But back in the day when President Xi and the other sent down youth were here, they had to find a way
Right.
to use
There were no
what
cars.
animals they
There were no
exactly
cars.
lug everything up there, and in certain areas they had to just kind of shave away part of the mountain to make it very rugged, where they were able to grow
Right.
crops. They had to do anything they could.
Well, I read from the book when they came here, they stopped by several cities because there was no direct train to get here.
Right, right.
So they had
it took
to,
them 2 days to come from.
Right, and the road was so narrow that only one carriage could pass through it, and people had to walk. So the villagers went to the town to pick them up. The 15 of them. There were 15 youth sent down from Beijing. Like 4 of them were women, and the others were male. And
But- But if you look at these areas, like where this is cut, I'm going to get very close here to show you, because when I
Right.
came, I thought carving a cave out of this, you're dealing with stone like this.
Yeah.
It's not like that. Eventually we want to be
No,
able
it's
to
not.
try to get one of our cameras up against some of this
Right.
dirt to show you just what it's like. But it's the kind of stuff, it's so soft, it's so delicate that if you even touch it, it falls off. And that's how they carve these out. Now these have been renovated, but these are simply cut into the mountain, and that's where President Xi
Right.
lived.
So it has the great softness and porosity, and that's why it could be easily carved. And on the lowest plateau, there are a lot of these cave homes, what the local people call it, what the Chinese call yaodong. Right.
Yeah, but we're going to hopefully, if you think about the people that came here, though, how they had to be so tough to live here over the years. We're up there. I think Ling Feng has got a camera close to that mountain, but I want to show you just how delicate this is. If he just reaches out and touches a little bit of that dirt, it simply falls off. And that's how easy it was to begin carving a cave in this area.
And well, because I did another story back in a neighboring province, and it's where people live in caves, but underground caves, because of this topography, a lot of the and on top of the ravines, there were tablelands, flat tablelands. There were flat tablelands created, and people living there, they have to dig downwards if they were to dig caves, right? And so I went there, and a folklore expert told me, because it seldom rains here, because it's arid, so because this the soil, this loess, loess is afraid of rain. We can see
doesn't deal with
right, but because it seldom rains, it's okay, and they do have ways to prevent rain
pouring down through. They're very creative.
The roof, yeah.
You know, and if we think about what President Xi was able to accomplish back here too, and he really showed his leadership skills at a very young age. He was the person that first developed a pit where they were able to get methane, control it, and pull it out for use.
It's just outside there. We can show
just out that area. And then he also dug a well, so he was able to have people. And when he left here, he had elevated himself to party secretary, and he was a very young man. So he really showed very tremendous leadership skills at a very young age. And you know,
well, that's funny because I talked to one villager today, not just any villager, but the person who was very close to him because they were close in age. He was about 1 year younger than Mr. Xi, and after Xi left, he took the leadership role in this village, but he told me that he couldn't see President Xi as the future leader of China. It didn't occur to him the thought, but he did. Some qualities of Xi did strike him.
They was very thoughtful and thought-provoking. He didn't speak without thinking.
And he is honest and right. He's also very perseverant. Whatever he plans on doing, he will commit to it.
Let's talk about this area and how it's changing, how they are working ways to find people a way to make money in this area, to raise the people out of poverty. Like we saw a family today, elderly, they had 3 grown children, 2 of whom were married, and they were adding a bathroom onto their house because they did not have an indoor facility, and they were basically doing it by themselves. But there are a lot of people, like up in these mountains, the very tops of them, you can see trees. A lot of these trees have been planted here. Some contracts with the government, some with the local government, and also orchards. This area is very well known for apples and other things.
Right. And these are all industries. Obviously, for Liangjiahe, this village, its main industry is tourism. It relies on tourism for. I was told that villagers here make like more than 20,000 RMB last year, like per person.
3,500 US, roughly.
Right, and that's not little. That's quite.
It's enough to live, yeah.
Right, and but. Apart from tourism, as I said, there's apple, there's like orchard, all these other industries. But
you know what? As soon as we say it doesn't rain here very much, we're starting to get the first bit of rain. It's supposed to rain tonight
drizzling.
And all tomorrow. So we're going to see what it does to this very delicate
it's not likely to be pouring, right?
I hope not. Well, I guess we'll find out very soon.
Right. So. I was told, and I thought that was quite interesting, that by a villager today, he said they didn't want to fail President Xi Jinping because poverty alleviation is such a big part of his policy and his ideas, and what's central to that is, he said, and that strikes me, he says people have to rely on themselves.
Exactly.
Right.
The self-reliance he talked about. If people are going to lift themselves up out of poverty, they're going to have to do it themselves. They can't depend on the government to give them a handout. They have to work in tandem with the local and the provincial leaders and find a way forward. And it's something China has done incredibly well. If you think about a generation ago, there were hundreds of millions of people living in poverty. In just 40 years, this is a nation through its government and through its planning, their economy has taken off, and now the poverty rate is at 3 to 4%. But when you have 1.4 billion people, you're still talking about an awful lot of people. So they're going to have to find a way to go that last mile, as it's called.
But it's not easy. I mean, like for a village like Liangjiahe, its close ties with Xi Jinping did it a favor. Like it saw a mini economic boom. But for other villagers, the last mile is not that easy.
Sure, yeah. You can't depend on tourism. Not everybody has a place where...
Not every village can develop tourism, for sure.
But the struggle is finding a way to get people to more populous areas, find a kind of employment. And we also went to an elementary school today, and primary school, and it was fascinating because you have to think about the kids whose parents feel they have to go elsewhere to work, to make money. And we're talking about an area where there were several dozen of these students, and the school was providing uniforms, they provided food, breakfast and lunch. They said the students would learn at different levels. So it was a challenge for the teachers because you know, there were very few teachers.
How many students there?
I think they said there were 90, and they said that they only had 26 just a couple of years ago. So it really
it's actually growing.
It's actually growing. School? Yeah, it's growing, and the challenge was to get more teachers in there.
Yeah, definitely.
And to build a better primary school. So it's just kind of a microcosm of China, always trying to look forward, to find a way to go to develop education, because we saw by all the books President Xi, and he just fed his mind when he was a very young person, and that really drove him to go on to do amazing things.
Yeah, he did say a lot of his ideas and characteristics derived from his experience living here.
What strikes you most after being here, an area that people call a tourist area? We've been here for more than 48 hours, talked to a lot of people, seen a lot of things. And we should also point out that as you come in and you wind your way up, there are areas people can pull over and they can buy things, everything from ice cream to the local products, juju, and the apples, which the apples are delicious, so if you ever come here. But there are also little trinkets, President Xi on one side, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I would say it's not really those things that impressed me most.
Yeah.
It's still back to the experience. I mean, like, I think myself, whether I would be able to endure all this at the age of 15, like...
Leaving your family, leaving everybody you know, everybody you love, and coming out to an area, not just...
He didn't just know how to cook, you know?
Yeah, that's another thing that Miss Liu
said, like,
told us.
I remember this now from his memoir. Like, there were 5 obstacles for him. The first one was flea infestation.
The bugs,
because the straw beds, you see the mats are made of straw, and there used to be a lot of fleas in the villages, and he used to get like bugs like biting him, and that hurts, obviously, an infestation. So that was the first obstacle he mentioned about. And the second was self-reliance, living like household chores.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't he had to make his own bed, cook, and sew his own clothes.
It's a tough life. It really was. For a 15-year-old?
Yeah, and also there was, when they first came, the so-called stand-down youth, they didn't mingle so well with the locals.
Right. That's one thing that the party secretary who followed President Xi talked about, because he was from a more rural area. So at night, basically the two sides, the kids who came from the big city and those who from this area, and they would share their life experiences.
She and the others were reluctant, you know, to mingle in, to fit in. But I guess with time it changed. And that guy who followed him as the party secretary said in the evening they would go into their caves and listen to their stories from the cities, and also tell them about their own stories in the villages, how people live, what the customs are. So that's how they started slowly to mingle with each other. What's the part that struck you most?
It had to be meeting Mrs. Liu, because that was just...
the lady.
Yeah, I mean, that's history. You grow, and she referred to him by his given name. It wasn't President Xi, or it wasn't Mr. Xi. She would call him Jinping. And I thought to myself, wow, I wonder how many people can refer to the president like that. And then you saw all the wonderful photographs that she had, and clearly President Xi was touched by seeing her. It had to bring back memories.
Sure.
I'm sure a lot of them weren't that pleasant. This was a very, very difficult experience. And Mrs. Liu was the one that said that she taught President Xi and the other boys who came from the city how to cook. But he learned quickly, and you had to in that time. But I'm also amazed. Look, I don't know if I could have done this. I really, as a 15-year-old kid, and I don't know if I could have emerged as positive and as hopeful about the future as he, and then to have such an impact. First working in agriculture, his time in the United States is very well known in the U.S. because he went to what's called America's Heartland, Iowa, the agriculture area, and he is very well known. People in Iowa know President Xi extremely well.
Well, that's also interesting because generations back, we're all farmers. I mean, Chinese are all farmers, but these days, my father used to grow up in the rice fields, so he knew how to farm, but I don't. Well, I would definitely want to spend some time in the countryside learning about all these things, but it's hard to imagine, like 4 decades ago, millions of young people
suddenly pouring into these areas.
Were sent to these areas.
And sleeping on a concrete with a little bit of straw on top of it. Now, it is warmer in there. I will say that. For on a day like this in late winter, it's getting cold and it's starting to rain. It's going to get a lot more cold.
Yeah, I'm shivering.
Yeah.
Right. We are going into the cave this evening, right?
Yeah, we'll be back.
Actually, yeah, we will be back in a few hours, and we'll be inside the cave and
we'll be joined. We'll have one other.
We have another experienced reporter,
honored guest with us.
Yeah,
I'll let you break that news.
We'll have a roundtable discussion and sharing more thoughts with you on what our experiences are coming to this
and we'll take you in all these caves to give you a better look at all these various things too, because there's so much. There's an area where grain was ground and they would do, and President Xi had a hand in that as well. It's just everything in this region. It seems like he had his fingers in, and he touched so many lives back in this area, and now across China.
Yeah. Now I'm just cold.
Well, I'll let you wrap it up then.
Yeah. So we'll see you in a few hours. Thanks for watching.